Hi, welcome to this episode of the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. This week I have Bob Frantz. Bob is the co-host of the Word Bros podcast, but most importantly, he's a comic writer and lover of Motorhead. His credits include Monty the Dinosaur, the highly successful Kickstarters for Chase the Moon and Metal Shark Bro. Bob, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Don. I'm your, second or third guest? Which one is it?
You are number 3.
I'm number silver, bronze medal, dude. That's how I live my life. Just good enough to get in, you know?
You're all gold medals to me. Just different events.
That was a really, really good way to make me feel nice about myself, Don. That was really good. That
You're
was
the
well
first
done.
writer I have.
Oh, well, that's fun. Okay. Because I saw the first show you had on the guy from Challenger in Chicago, which that's a really interesting guest to have on because, you know, the comic market is strictly based on retailers anyway. You know, so that's very interesting insight. We've talked about having a retailer on Word Bros, but like they just kind of fall through. But yeah, I was really impressed with that one. Good job.
Yeah. Patrick, he has his own podcast that he hosts with his business partner Dow every week about running comics, comic shop. So you know, and also if you've watched the episode, everyone, I'll put a link somewhere around here. He's a huge metalhead, so
There you go.
perfect fit. Perfect fit. So, comics, coffee, metal, Bob. Where'd you start?
I started with comics when I was a young lad. I didn't have a big brother or a cool uncle or anything like that. So I kind of started reading comics after I saw the 1989 Tim Burton Batman film.
Oh, okay.
Like I saw that movie, I was 11? I saw that movie and it opened up a whole new wide world to me. And I went out and tried to buy every comic I could find at every grocery store, at the Oceana Commissary, which is like a Navy grocery store, at 7-Eleven. Like I bought everything. I found myself kind of gravitating towards Spider-Man. I tried to buy all the Spider-Man books I could find and that's it. You know, as I got older, I stopped reading because my interests kind of varied. Puberty set in and I liked smoking and girls. So I kind of did that for a while. And then once I quit smoking and settled down, I started reading comics again around Civil War, and I've kind of been back ever since. So
Awesome.
it's a love affair, really. It's a love affair.
I mentioned in a previous episode how, you know, the comics industry today for people our age would probably be non-existent if it wasn't for Big Brothers. But I would think a close second is the 89 Batman movie.
It was amazing. Like
it was everywhere. It was just ubiquitous. It was.
I mean, you couldn't go into a store without seeing shirts with Batman logos on it. I mean, all the toys. I mean, I think I even have somewhere like the movie version of the book. That was like probably the first comic I bought because I was like, I need to see this all the time. And it's an amazing film. It's probably Michael Keaton is probably still my favorite Batman.
I'm partially inclined to agree there. Inclined. I'm speaking great today.
You got close, dude.
I totally agree with you. Like, I'm dying for a Batman Beyond movie with Keaton as old Bruce Wayne, just taking up the role again and just killing it.
Yeah, and it was cool too to see Homecoming because in Homecoming, Michael Keaton as the villain outshone the hero of the film, much like what happened to him in the 89 Batman movie. Like everybody was jocking Joker and you kind of forgot how wonderful Michael Keaton was. So it was fun that he got to usurp his hero when he played the villain. Because I mean, I saw as much like everyone else did Homecoming, and for me, Michael Keaton made that film. Without Michael Keaton, it's all right.
I agree. I mean, I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. He's like the best so far.
Toby for life. Toby for life.
Second. He's easy second.
Yeah.
Easy second. But
he's
Tom
got the
just
Peter
nails
Parker part done. I think Tom is a better Spider-Man. I think Toby's got that aw shucks kind of Peter vibe, which I like.
He's definitely got the Ditko Peter down. But I think overall as a whole package, Tom Holland kind of nails it all. So.
And that other kid, that Andrew Garfield kid, was too good looking.
That's what everyone says, but
he's too good looking and too cocky and confident as Peter to be Peter for me.
I guess he's just not my type. I guess.
Agreed. As for the second part of that, coffee, I started drinking coffee. All my life, my grandmother drank coffee. Granted, she only lived till I was about 10. She drank it all the time. She said it would stunt my growth. It sounded really fun. After I quit kind of reading comics and I got interested in cigarettes and girls, a lot of the time cigarettes and girls would end up at like Denny's or Waffle House. And this was back in the day when you could smoke at a restaurant, especially a Waffle House. And so like I would hang out at Waffle House with my friends, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee. Granted, 17-year-old Bob coffee was mainly like sugar and cream.
Mm-hmm.
But that started my love affair with coffee, and I've been drinking it ever since. Even though, Don, I hate to tell you this, until recently I stopped drinking coffee.
That's okay. We understand.
I'm currently not drinking coffee. I'm drinking tea, which is quite yummy. I got sick early at the beginning of the year. I just had like a really icky stomach thing. And the coffee was too harsh on my belly, so I just started drinking black tea. And it's been pretty nice. My belly hasn't been as hurting anymore, you know what I'm saying? So I'm taking a step back for a little while and just drinking tea, which is fancy and British. And I love British things. I love British soccer. I listen to British sports talk radio. So like it's me becoming a Brit. My daughter watches can I swear?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, my daughter watches Mary Poppins like 34 times a week.
I like how he's like, can I swear? And then you reference Mary Poppins.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sophie loved my daughter. She's 8. Mary Poppins is her favorite movie. I'm becoming more British every day, Don.
Nice. No, coffee, like all amazing things in life, you know, sometimes there's too much.
Yeah,
you know, and you got to cut back a little bit.
When you're drinking like 3 French presses of coffee a day, like it's a lot. And then, you know, if I didn't drink coffee, I would get these excruciating headaches. And that's a lot. Like it was like train spotting. I'm laying in bed and there's a baby crawling on the ceiling with a cup of coffee coming for me. It was too much. And
having taken breaks for coffee myself, I've tried to find the equilibrium to where I can drink enough to where I drink how much I'm happy having with during a day.
Yeah.
And then, but not so much that if I don't have any the next day, I'm like just migraine city. So I think I've got my happy medium there, but yeah, I get it. We understand.
It's hard. I get it. As a stay-at-home, you're a stay-at-home father. I'm a stay-at-home father. Kids don't rest. Like they just go.
No.
And they may not sleep at night, but they'll wake up and they're ready to rock and roll. You got to be ready to rock and roll, baby. You're like the Rolling Stones. Every day you got to hit the stage. You got to get going. You know.
My coffee cup's like rings of a tree. Just you know, get a sip, and then if I manage to finish a warm cup of coffee in a day, it's an amazement.
Oh, see, I like it cold personally. Like I prefer I would make a French press right before I would go to bed, and then wake up in the morning and have that cold, ready to rock and roll. So like I'll just pour it into like a pint glass and drink it like a Guinness, and then rock it. But then you're doing that all day, and then it's just your stomach is because I would have these days where
it's a lot of acid.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. I would be sitting at my computer. It happened yesterday, as a matter of fact, just working on the Metal Shark Bro backer kit, which is proving to be more of a monster than I thought it would be. And I realized to myself, hey, it's 1:30. You've eaten a handful of cashews and 2 carrot cake Oreos all day. You're probably hungry. So I had a bowl of soup, but the coffee on top of that would have killed me. The tea, not so much. Not so much.
All right.
And it's much cheaper. I go to Aldi's and get like black tea for like $1.99, and it's surprisingly delicious.
Tipton tea, whatever the Aldi's brand is.
It's like English breakfast or something. It's great.
No, I love black tea. I was hardcore tea before I started with coffee and kind of fell.
Okay.
So I alternate. Winter's a good time for tea, I must admit, especially at night.
Yeah.
So.
And then metal for me, you know what, Dee? I'm going to tell you, metal also came very late for me. When I was a kid, and I was a little kid, I watched The Exorcist with my grandfather. And I had to have been under 7 because my grandfather died when I was like 8. So I saw The Exorcist with my grandpa, and it scared me to death. Like the idea of the devil was frightening, like just terrifying. Like the idea that the devil could possess you and make you do things and vomit all over people and be evil and crazy. So I was petrified of the idea of the devil. I remember when I was a kid, probably a couple years later, maybe like 10, a friend of mine gave me Metallica Kill 'Em All on cassette. And I had a little cassette player in my room, like a boom box, and I was listening to Metallica Kill 'Em All, and I was really digging it. And my mom came in, she's like, turn that down. And I was like, And she said, you know, all those guys worship the devil, right? And I was like, that's it, I'm out. And I stopped listening. Like, that was it for me. Like, all she had to tell me was, you know, those guys worship the devil. That was my kryptonite. So I was like, okay, I'm not listening to this stuff. And I didn't. So then I started listening to like hardcore hip hop, like hardcore hip hop. Like I'm talking like, I remember in 7th grade for my birthday, my mom bought me the Eazy-E tape from the Oceana Exchange. Easy Does It. She had no idea what that was, but she bought it for me. So I just listened to hip hop most of my life.
Eazy-E, that sounds like a nice guy.
Eazy-E, he's easy. It's wonderful. So I listened to a lot of hip hop. And then I guess my first kind of like, I don't want to say, when did I start really listening to metal? I guess I want to say probably fairly recently. Like I'll just turn on various metal bands, I guess. But I guess the first one was probably Led Zeppelin, I guess, if you want to consider them a metal band. Can we consider
personally, I don't, which
really
might enrage some people.
Okay.
I'm not a huge Zeppelin guy. There's like maybe 4 or 5 songs I'm like, yeah, I can dig on that. But overall, not my jam. I don't judge anyone who does love them. But yeah, when you say metal, like they definitely influenced metal a lot.
Okay, so
I think
like
they definitely had like Kashmir. Every metal band has that kind of riff in their catalog somewhere. But overall, I think it just kind of gets overshadowed from that era, because from there, I think Sabbath or or
Sabbath,
even early Motorhead or early Priest, that stuff kind of eclipses whatever.
What about like, how do you feel about AC/DC? Is AC/DC a metal band?
AC/DC is everything. They are metal, they are hard rock, they are rock and roll. They are so, like, I think if I bring up, so far it's been 3 episodes into this podcast, and I keep bringing up like the Venn diagrams of metal and all the different genres.
Okay.
And in the first episode with Patrick, I kind of stated that I think for all metalheads, you kind of start with the big 4, which is Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer. Like one of those is kind of like your starting point. I think if we were to dig deeper into there, like AC/DC certainly fits in there. But there's plenty of people I know and have met in my life who love AC/DC, but that's like as hard as they go.
Okay.
But I would definitely call them metal, just due to the attitude.
See, because like I think
you can't listen to.
Like, to me, AC/DC is more just like a straight up rock and roll band, and I love the fact that they've never written a ballad. Like, like they've never gone. It's just when you turn on an AC/DC record, you know what you're gonna get, and I really
the closest thing you have to ballad is like "You Shook Me All Night Long."
Yeah, and it's fun because AC/DC is the birth. If it wasn't for AC/DC and classic rock radio, there would be no Metal Shark Bro, because that's how Metal Shark Bro was birthed.
Well, that leads right into my next question. Tell us about Metal Shark Bro.
Metal Shark Bro is a wonderful comic that'll be out in April. We ran a super successful Kickstarter. Thank you to everybody who backed the book. I mean, it was a phenomenon. I still get like just kind of choked up and amazed when I think about what we were able to pull off with that book.
Well, but I think you need to give yourself, Walter, and Kevin, your co-creators on the book, more credit, because you guys were out there hustling.
Oh yeah,
dude. Every night. Kevin putting himself through harm, eating hot things, just to get those backers, get that interest. You guys did a fantastic job, and it's definitely made me rethink any potential Kickstarters I might do and how to approach it, and just organization of it. So you gotta give yourself that credit.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And you have these social media platforms, right? Like you have your Twitters and your Instagrams and Snapchat and Facebook and all this stuff. And like as an artist, there are kind of more interesting social media, I guess, platforms for you. You can post your work on Instagram and get kind of views and looks and likes, and people can check you out that way. As a writer, it's a little more difficult to do. So I kind of just had the idea that I was just going to broadcast on Facebook Live. Like I would just go downstairs to my basement and turn on my camera and talk. And I treated it like a convention, basically. Like this is I'm having a comic book convention in my basement, and I'm the only guest. I have 2,000 friends on Facebook. Somebody's going to walk into this chat and go, hey, I wonder what Bob's up to. And they're going to look at this thing and they're going to see me talking about it or see me talking about God knows what. And they'll go, you know what, this sounds kind of neat. Or Bob's a good dude. I'll give him $10. And I mean, and a lot of that, and we did a lot of those, and they were fairly successful. So I mean, it's an opportunity to kind of to use your social media platform in a more vibrant form, as opposed to just posting "I love Oreo cookies." You know what I'm saying? Or like stupid shit like that, where you can actually kind of, I guess, monetize your social media, your platforms. Then you can see where your traffic is coming from via the Facebook analytics, and we saw it in the flesh, like boom, right there. So it was really nice. It was a nice it keeps me on Facebook, is what I'm saying.
There's so many reasons not to be.
Yes, the one reason why I stay on Facebook is because you know what? I know eventually I'm going to kickstart something. This is a nice place for me to go. I have a good following here. Let me try to see what I can get from there. So I will never ever get rid of Facebook. Nice. But anyway, Metal Shark Bro was birthed. I was driving back from the Hampton Comic Con in Hampton, Virginia. I was driving from Hampton, Virginia to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is about a 10-hour drive. A friend of mine runs that show. He invited me to the show. I'll go to any show I'm invited to because I need to have comics will travel. If I've got books, I got to sell them. I got to spread the word, the goodness, if you will. And I needed to be back on Monday. It was a one-day show, a Saturday. I left Hampton. I was staying at Drew Moss's house, a dear friend of mine and a great artist. I left his house early Sunday morning because I had to be back on Monday because parenting waits for no man or woman. In this case, it's a man because I'm a stay-at-home father. So I was on the road super early in the morning, and AC/DC was on Highway to Hell, and I was just jamming out and having a nice time listening to Highway to Hell. And after the song was over, the radio guy, the DJ, came on, and he said, yeah, man, that was AC/DC Highway to Hell. I don't know if you guys saw this study in the news, but scientists recently put speakers in water with sharks to see how heavy metal music would affect the creatures, and come to find out, scientists say they really dig metal. Coming up next, we got the Doobie Brothers and Jimi Hendrix, and we'll be back right after this. And I heard that, and I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. So I called Kevin, my co-writer and co-creator and just overall friend, and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I knew Kevin was awake because of his job. And I called him and I was like, dude, sharks love heavy metal. We got to make a book about sharks loving heavy metal. And for the rest of that trip, Kevin and I just outlined Metal Shark Bro. Like we just discussed things that should happen in this book. And it was a really fun ride home. It made the time fly by. And by the time I got home, in Cincinnati, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I got this idea. Kevin and I came up with this idea for this book, and I just laid it out to her, and she looked at me like I was fucking insane, because it's kind of a stupid premise if you just look at it from the outside, if you're not completely involved. So I laid it out to her, and she was like, all right, do it. And that's how it happened. You know, we hooked up with Chaz Pangburn, who is a wonderful editor and letterer. He's a really good dude. He edited the book, and like he kind of kicked the tires on some of the ideas. We did some rewrites on stuff, but the general idea of Metal Shark's journey from issue 1 to the end of issue 4 was birthed because of AC/DC on I-64 on a stretch in Virginia no one ever's on. And that's how it happened. It was amazing. It was amazing. So I will always have a love affair for AC/DC.
That's awesome. I've heard the story like 3 or 4 times when you guys were on various podcasts with the Kickstarter and all that, but I never get tired of hearing because it's just such a like perfect moment. And
Dude,
it's
I mean,
like,
like if I wouldn't have been listening to this radio station, I wouldn't have this wouldn't have happened. Like
no.
it was all based on that news story. Like this dude on the air, his recorded break, because I'm sure he wasn't live. I worked in radio for a really long time. There's no live jocks on at 5:30 in the morning in bumfuck Virginia, in the middle of nowhere in the Appalachian Mountains. This was a recorded break, and this dude was so amped about sharks loving metal that it made me love sharks who love metal. And then we just kind of came up with it from there, and it was super awesome.
Nice,
so
nice.
yeah, it was a really good time. It was a really fun adventure. And like Kevin and I basically were just trying to make each other giggle because we were both kind of sleep deprived. We both did the show. We were both up super early in the morning. And the more we giggled about stuff, the better we knew it would be. And as we're driving, I'm like, dude, I want to rip off Song Remains the Same and have like, have you ever seen the film Song Remains the Same?
I can't say I have.
Okay, do yourself a favor. Watch Song Remains the Same. It's a Led Zeppelin concert movie where they film a Led Zeppelin show over like 3 nights at Madison Square Garden in like at like the height of their powers. Like ridiculous. So, but in between some of the songs, the band members do like little vignettes, like little short films. So like John Bonham, who's the drummer of Led Zeppelin, his airs during Moby Dick, which is the long drum solo.
Yeah.
And so he's just doing like manly shit, like drinking beer at a bar and like breaking up concrete with a jackhammer and like racing a funny car and like milking a cow. Like it's just preposterously dumb. And then like it's so stupid, but it works on so many levels because someone's like Led Zeppelin pitched this idea to somebody and they said, all right, do it. Like, yeah, people want to see John Bonham milking a cow. Like, yes, that's what Led Zeppelin fans want to see. So Robert Plant has his little vignette where he's like a dashing like hero of like the Norris age, and he's like sword fighting a dude. And so we just kind of borrow little bits and pieces of Song Remains the Same. So this story is kind of deep in metal lore.
So if I understand correctly, at some point in these 4 issues, we're going to see Metal Shark Bro milk a cow.
It got cut. It got cut. Like, well, Kevin and I wrote an entire issue basically for one joke. Like, we wrote an entire issue for this one joke, but it got cut, so we had to rework the issue. So it was very painful to cut that joke. But sometimes, you know, you have to make sacrifices, and that was the sacrifice we made. You know, for the betterment of the story, we chose to move on. It's very sad, but it had to be done. But you will see like a wizard modeled after Jimmy Page in Metal Shark Bro. He was actually in the ash can because we had an ash can that floated around for a while in some of the sample pitch pages that we had. So it's kind of steeped in metal lore, if you will.
So you bring it up working with Kevin, and you've now done 2 successful Kickstarters with Kevin as your co-writer.
Yes.
Metal Shark Bro and Chase the Moon, with also the aforementioned awesome artist Drew Moss.
Yes, Drew's wonderful.
So I've always wondered with like writing partners, like having done your own singular writing, working with an artist, is there similarity between the artist's input to you and Kevin's input in the back and forth between writers as a writer and artist?
You know, man, with art, I have a more hands-off approach because I am not as knowledgeable with art. If I have art questions, if I'm working with an artist that I've never worked with before, I like to send things to people that know more about theory and visual storytelling than I do. But when it comes to writing, Kevin and I can kind of, it's like playing a game of like tennis. Like the idea is the ball, and we're just kind of hitting it back and forth to each other, trying to make the initial idea better and more wonderful. Kevin was in a band for a really long time, so he kind of gets the idea of working in a group dynamic. I worked on a radio show before all this stuff back in Norfolk, Virginia, and we had like a four-man team. My friend and I were the hosts, but we had other people around. And like it was very much similar, like you're building an idea together. So the idea of working in a group doesn't affect me much. Like I actually appreciate it because I don't have all the answers. You know what I'm saying? And I'm completely aware of that. So, and I'm not trying to stroke my own ego. Like I'm not doing this so people go, "Oh, Bob is such an awesome writer." Like I don't care. Like I don't care where the idea comes from. I don't care if it's Kevin's idea or it's my idea or he wrote that line or whatever. Like I just want the book to be as good as it could possibly be. And Kevin has that same mentality. I've tried writing with other people with less success because sometimes ego does get involved. So when you're working with a partner, especially a writing partner, you need to put your ego aside and just go, hey man, we got to do what's best for this product. And Kevin and I were very good at doing that. I mean, we did the 2 successful Kickstarters, but then we also did 2 books. We did a one-shot called The Elvis Adventures Together, which we did with Micah Myers and Rachel Ordway. And then we did another book called Full Moon Fredo with Angela Sprecher on the art for that and Sean Greenleaf on letters. And like, it's just very fun to just kind of bat ideas around to see what happens, you know? So that's where we are. Kevin and I have been working together now, I think for like 4 years, and it's been cool. You know, sometimes he does more heavy lifting than I do, but we're both involved in the outline process. So like he may write the majority of a script, but he'll shoot it to me and I could tweak a dialogue here, tweak a line there. But overall, when it comes to the outline of the book, that's something we do together. And we can get twice as much done because we can have 2 outlines and I'll go, okay, I'll do this, you do that one. Yeah. And then we break. And if it gets to a point where, and if Kevin gets to a point in a script where he's stuck, then he can always say, hey man, you know, hot tag. I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but you hot tag your partner and, you know, an animal comes in the ring and clotheslines everybody and sweeps everything clear and everybody's happy. Nice. So in that aspect, it's pretty nice. Working with an artist, again, I always kind of, I'll farm that out. I'll be like, hey, I don't know this. Let me send it to somebody, see what they think of it. And so a lot of times I'll get notes on art from another person. But that's why an editor is important because they can kind of help with that as well. Working with Walter Osley has been amazing because he's pro as all hell get out. He's a writer himself, so he kind of can tweak scenes as well and have ideas. And again, it's all just kind of coming together to make the book as good as possible. You know, like, and that's what's important. I don't care who gets the credit. I don't care, you know, whose name's going to be first in the online review on a website 6 people read that says, "Oh man, Bob's amazing." Like, I don't care. I just want people to read the book and I want people to like it. Like, if they, you know what I'm saying? That's all. I'm looking for a great success as opposed. I don't need my ego stroked. I did when I was 28. At 41, I don't care anymore. You know what I'm saying?
I think that attitude is very prevalent and very noticeable with you and Kevin and everyone else you collaborate with. You're all like team whatever it is you're working on. And I think that really shows through with everything you guys post and talk about. And I really believe that's why you guys have been so successful getting these things funded, because it's one thing to want to fund something that looks cool. It's another thing to want to fund something that looks cool and the people behind it are passionate and you're like, yeah, they're gonna get this done, they're on the same board. You know, you're not expecting like so and so is gonna blow up and like, I'm not gonna finish drawing this book, and then you're left with your hat in your hands like, the artist left, we gotta find it. You know, it seems like you guys, you know, starting with you and Kevin, put together these teams and it just seems like such perfect fits. Because I like to segue into Chase the Moon, which is your latest one, which isn't as outrightly metal, but it's got werewolves, and werewolves are metal. So just by default. So, you know, could you talk a little bit more about Chase the Moon and picking, you know, Drew as the artist, because he is someone who has just like flown under the radar for so long. And he's done
Kevin had pitched Chase the Moon to Drew maybe 3 years ago, and he said that he's like, yeah, it's good, it's missing something, but it's good. And then Kevin and I started kicking the idea around as we do, and like we added some fun elements to it because Kevin had this cool idea of like monster gangs fighting, which is cool. Like that sounds awesome.
I'm in on that premise alone.
Yeah. I said, and I told Kevin too, I was like, it's missing something. I was like, what if we add a love story? And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, have you ever seen Say Anything? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, what if we have a Say Anything scenario where like one of the werewolf kids is in love with a human girl and she's leaving this town. So this werewolf kid has to choose between his love or his pack. And that's where it kind of got a little bit more interesting because then it becomes a story about people as opposed to a story about just werewolves. It gives a little bit more heart. And we pitched the idea to Drew, and he was like, "Dude, I love it." He said, "I'm busy because I got a million things going on, but I love it." So he had an opening in his schedule, and we just kind of went with it. Like, and it's been a lot of fun. We're kind of hammering away on the issues of that now. It's a fun, right? It's a 80s werewolves, fighting, hip hop mummies is super fun. It's a super fun idea. But there's got to be a little bit more to that. So like you have to make the love story believable, even though we need to kind of dial back on it some because we only have so many pages to do it. But it's been a really fun journey. It's been a really fun, and I mean, to work with Drew, I've known Drew for 10 years and he's a great guy and he's a wonderful artist and he's a workhorse, dude. Like, he's a pro and he's going to get things done. Like when you're doing Kickstarters for this gigantic amount, you have to make sure when you're doing a Kickstarter for any amount, you have to make sure everybody's on board. And Drew is on board. It's nothing like I don't stay awake at night worrying is Drew going to get these pages done because he's a pro and it's his book too. So like his reputation's on the line. So he's got to get this done. But I mean, he's just such an amazing storyteller and just such a wonderful dude. I can't speak highly enough about the thrill it is working with him because I've admired his work. I've admired his drive. I've admired his kind of spirit for a really long time, and to get to be a part of that. Because this ain't the first idea I pitched Drew, you know what I mean? He's been like, yeah, no. And then like, he was like, yeah, let's do it. And then so he comes up with all the designs and he comes up with and it's just, dude, it's because they're just words on a page.
Yeah.
You've seen a comic script, it's dull. It's that artwork. It's that, it's that working with a collaborator that you're on the same page with that really makes it hum. And like, dude, there's nothing like it, man. It's so much fun to see like the little panels that he sends us and, just his input. Well, what if we did this? And it's like, oh, I never even thought about that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's the fun of it. Like if you're just working with people who's like, you're paying somebody a page rate and they're basically an art monkey, you're not getting the full experience. Like no. You want someone to be as involved as you are. And luckily on these two projects, we've gotten people that are as fired up about it as I am, as Kevin is, and sometimes it's hard to match Drew's intensity because he thinks about this stuff all the time. Like he'll send me a page and tell me like I changed a panel here and a panel here because blah, blah. And it just makes my head hurt because I'm like, dude, I don't understand the theory behind any of this because you're on like a whole nother level. You're like, you're telling me like, well, Eisner does things like this when he's telling a story visually and you need to vary up camera angles. And it's stuff that I take in, but like when you just see it in a Facebook message and it's, a page long, it takes up an entire screen of your monitor. You're like, oh my, your eyes start rolling back in your head.
It's also just pure time because the amount of time it takes you to write a page is, not to diminish it, but it's minuscule in terms of the amount of time it takes to thumbnail, layout, draw, ink, and all the thought that goes behind that. Like, you really, if you're into it and you're really into it, like, your artists are, they definitely
collaborators, not artists. These are collaborators. These are friends.
As your fellow creators on the books, are invested. They have the, they're digging their hands into the soil to get the best out of it.
Yeah.
And I think again, that's all credit to all of you because it's just as much on an artist to join into a collaboration to where they're going to give everything they have and put forth all this stuff as opposed to just cranking out pages for a rate.
Yeah, but I think that's also I think responsibility of the writers, because I didn't know Walter going into Metal Shark Bro. Like, Kevin met him at Heroes a couple years ago, and I had seen his work around, and I like it. I have his Shiver Bureau hardback from Kickstarter. Like, I liked his work, but I didn't know that dude. But like, when we were talking to him about working together, our approach was, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to draw? Like, what are you into doing? And we can kind of work an idea around what you're interested in. And we were kicking ideas around because we had somebody else who was going to work on Metal Shark Bro for us. So we didn't pitch Walter that initially. We were just kicking ideas around. And then finally, I guess the other artist had too many commitments, so we kind of parted ways mutually. And then we pitched the idea to Metal Shark Bro to Walter. And he was like, this is great. So we're like, cool, let's do it, you know? And so he added his input in there as well. So it's you have to kind of form projects to the people you want to work with. Like, if you're going to an artist and you say, hey, what do you want to draw? And the dude's like, I like drawing wizards and dragons and high fantasy stuff. You don't want to pitch that artist, I got a spy thriller that takes place in like 1974 Berlin. Like, they're not going to be into that. If there's someone you want to work with, and social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or whatever, is a wonderful place to try to meet artists. And if you see someone's work that you like, hit him up. Kevin's wonderful at it. Like, he will slide up in anybody's DMs and be like, hey, like, you want to work on a book with us? And if they say no, they say no. But you'll be surprised the amount of people that will say yes, because it's a numbers game. You got to get books made. You got to get artists have to get paid.
Fortune favors the bold, man. You can't get stuff done unless you try. So
it's true. So a lot of times Kevin handles that aspect of it. I'll do it every now and then. But it's worked out really well for us. So working with a team has been really awesome. Cool. It's been cool. And we have a nice group of collaborators. I can't wait to work with Walter again. We've already been talking about what we want to do next. Maybe continuing Metal Shark Bro if Scout is interested in doing it. Drew, Kevin, and I have 100 ideas, because when you've been friends for 10 years, I've known Kevin for about 5, you just come up with stuff. So, we have things that we want to work on. So it's cool, man. It's nice to build like a little community. And I feel like that's what we're doing, and we're doing a good job at it. And we're bringing in and we're hanging out with good people, people that...
I truly believe that's where the best stuff is made in all creative forms.
People who want to work,
exactly.
people who want to get stuff done. You can make excuses or you can make comics, make comics.
So Metal Shark Bro may have been born of AC/DC, but I know you are now, albeit late, a lover of Motorhead.
I love Motorhead.
Which is my, I've known you for a few years, so there's no like instant endearment there because it was already happening. But if I didn't, that right there is like, oh, he loves Motorhead? That's my guy. So I have to ask, what's your favorite Motorhead song? How did you first start listening to them? Because again, you got into metal late, and they are definitely a bridge for people who like AC/DC type stuff to bridge into metal, but they are, definitely more metal than rock and roll.
Oh no, totally, yeah, it's speed metal. Like, I think I fell into Motorhead probably the way most people do is Ace of Spades. Like, you hear Ace of Spades and you just want to hear more, and you just keep kind of listening and listening and listening. And it's hard to be an expert at Motorhead because Lemmy put out like 1,000 records.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's literally, like, if you go to their Spotify page, there's like 8,000 Motorhead records. So you just kind of like, what I would do is I would just kind of farm out like greatest hits, because all the greatest hits have different tracks on them. I'm not going to say like I'm a deep cut Motorhead dude, but I love Motorhead. Like, Killed by Death is probably my favorite Motorhead song. Nice. Just strictly based on the title itself. Completely ludicrous.
Lemmy is a wordsmith among wordsmiths for titles.
Yes.
And it's just, it amazes me every time. And especially when, you realize a lot of Ozzy's 90s hits were written by Lemmy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mama, I'm Coming Home, a bunch of the No More Tears records, just that was a monster record, and that's so much has Lemmy's mark on it. It's pretty amazing.
Dude, I mean, he's great. I mean, like, and I didn't even know this because I started listening to like space rock a while, like maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, like the 13th Floor Elevators and like Hawkwind. And a friend of mine was like, Lemmy was in Hawkwind, right? And I was like, really? So like, he was the bass player. I had no idea he was the bass player of Hawkwind for a while.
They do the song Motorhead,
Yeah,
that started it all.
Hawkwind is an amazing band. Like, if you just want to listen to like weird kind of like I get the genre is space rock, I guess. I mean, that's your band. It's so awesome to listen to. Which is weird because he's in this like kind of psychedelic, weird like guitar noises and stuff, and then he goes solo and becomes like a speed metal dude. It's very odd how that happens,
Yeah, Lemmy's certainly, one of like the legends of all kinds of rock.
Yeah.
And left his footprint in more ways than one and everything. I'm currently trying to cover a Motorhead song.
Really?
And just getting the, I'm no great vocalist by any stretch, but neither was Lemmy. But Lemmy was Lemmy. Like, you can't, like, there's such attitude behind every word he says.
It's totally awesome.
You really have to nail it to really get it. Like, the best Motorhead cover I ever heard were from Metallica, and that's when he was basically just doing Lemmy. Like, when they.
Well, because I mean, you got to get that growl, that like hardcore kind of like. It's almost
it's speaking but not speaking. It's not singing but it's not screaming. It's just pure angst and fu attitude.
Yeah,
it's
very
amazing.
He's very much like and I can see why he would cross over, because like I know punk rock kids that were super into Motorhead, because I mean, like, he's totally the personification of that attitude. Like, he's just like, fuck you, like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna play my bass guitar and the microphone's gonna be 10 feet over my head and I'm gonna yell into it and I'm gonna smoke cigarettes and drink Jack Daniels and just rock. And it's awesome. Like, he's great.
Yeah. The world is certainly lesser for not having him around, but
I mean, to be fair, he lived to 70, and that's fairly amazing.
That's about 40 more years than a man who lives his lifestyle should have lived. So
yeah. I think you can make the same argument for Dave Mustaine. Like, how is that guy still alive? Like, he became a born again Christian or some crazy shit like that, I heard, and like he
went pretty hardcore
times.
into the Christian thing after sobriety, I think in the early 2000s.
Okay.
He's since kind of like softened a bit, because for a while he was like, if a band was like openly satanic, he wouldn't tour with them, he wouldn't play on the show with them. But now I think he's kind of like relaxed a little bit, and because Dave Ellefson, the bass player, is also a Christian, but he's also much more laid back with like, it's just music, we're just doing our thing, like it's all show.
Well, I guess when you OD 14 times and you live, like, you gotta kind of believe in something at that point, you know what I'm saying? Because if you're just spitting in the face of whatever God you find acceptable at that point,
Well, like, one of the most telling things I think was in that Behind Music episode is when like all his friends were like, we're not telling you to stop doing drugs, just pick one, just stick to one, like, don't do everything.
And but, you're hardcore. I always said this too about Steven Adler. Like, you're hardcore, that you get kicked out of a band because you're doing too much drugs.
I actually just read his biography. His
Steven Adler?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was free on Prime. So I was like, oh, I like musician biographies. Like, I mean, it's clear he's engineered his own destruction so many times.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to see just like, it's usually if a memoir, it's like, and here's where I got clean and I got better, and this one ends with like, nope.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
trying.
Again, you're doing too many drugs if Guns N' Roses thinks that you have a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, because is Guns N' Roses metal? Are they a metal band?
I would classify them as metal. Like,
okay,
they hit into it. They hit into it more so than I would say Zeppelin, because
some people try to lump Guns N' Roses into hair metal, which I think is ridiculous.
They started from that scene, but even hair metal is metal. Like, a lot of those hair metal bands, like, if you look really into their catalogs, they got some killer riffs. You know, they just kind of, you know, the look and the sound is developed from that scene. Like, I'm not a fan of Motley Crue, but if you listen to if you listen to the first few Crue records, they got some heavy ass stuff in there, and you know, just that type of vocal doesn't do anything for me, or the lyrical like party stuff is it's just not my bag. But no, I think, but definitely lumping them into the hair metal is not, because just they weren't exactly the same. They came from that scene, but they weren't.
They were dirty and like scary. Like I just did a podcast where we talked about Guns N' Roses, and I remember listening to Appetite for Destruction, which again, for my money, is probably the greatest debut record ever. It just fucking rocks your face off. They were scary looking. Like they were dirty looking dudes, and like they swore and like they were saying bad words. And like at 11, I'm just like, wow, this is awesome. Like this is great. Like I had no idea, you know, because like we had friends that were listening to like Poison and dumb shit like that. And like then you see these dudes that have like, to have visible tattoos on MTV in 1988, that's something. Like that, you didn't see that. Like now you got dudes tattooed all over their faces, but I mean like these dudes had tattoos on their arms and you're like, that's kind of rough and tumble looking, you know what I mean? Like these dudes are smoking cigarettes and drinking a lot. This is awesome. So yeah.
I've never been super into Guns N' Roses, but I definitely have an appreciation for a lot of their songs. I think, you know, I'm very much a riff person. And I think opening riff to Welcome to the Jungle, like, I was all for that. And then the rest of the song, I was like, yeah, it's fine. Until the solo, which is Slash is Slash, and you can't not love Slash.
That record, I mean, like, that record with My Michelle and It's So Easy and Mr. Brownstone and Rocket Queen. And, I mean, that record is just pillar to post, just, like, smash hit after, like, giant smash hit. It's fucking so good, dude. I can't speak highly enough of Appetite for Destruction. Like it's just so wonderful in like the worst possible way. It's great.
I would definitely though say they are metal, because they just had such, because metal's just so much more than just heavy riffs or speed riffs or double bass or whatever. It's certainly the attitude, which is why, you know, I kind of like Zeppelin. I don't know, because they really weren't trying. They were more of, I guess now they would probably fall into a category of metal, like a folk metal or something like that.
I mean, they were so huge, and I mean, like Jimmy Page would like hang out with like occultists and stuff like that. So like he was super into all that stuff. There was even a time where people thought the band was cursed because like Robert Plant's child passed away, and a lot of people attested that to like Jimmy Page's interest in like occultism and stuff like that. So like they were into it. Like
he was really into the Aleister Crowley guy, and
like Jimmy Page was basically like a witch, and you know he was strung out on heroin when they were doing, I think it was Physical Graffiti or whatever. Like they were nuts. Like they were fucking crazy. Like, they had a plane. Like they were a band that had their own plane with their name on the side.
You might be convincing me a little bit here, Bob. You know? You might be reminding me of just how insane they really were.
And like if you go back and listen to some of the songs, like Robert Plant is a huge Tolkien fan, so there's like, you know, all kinds of, like all that stuff, dude. You know, where like I think Dio and gets a lot of credit for bringing a lot of that element in. I mean, like Zeppelin was they were planting those seeds, like Misty Mountaintops. That's straight off, you know, Tolkien stuff. So I mean, yeah, it's pretty good, dude. It's pretty good. Wizards and shit.
To make a not so gentle segue, you have all these, you know, great comic projects we just talked about, but you've also had this really great kids book, Monty the Dinosaur. And I've always wondered, you know, as an artist, I know it's hard to shift for the most part from drawing a certain way to drawing to another certain way that's best suited for a project. How difficult or not is it to write something like Monty, which is very much geared for younger kids, or something like Metal Shark Bro, which is very much not for kids? Or at least, you know, depending on your parenting style.
I think the last thing I want to do is talk down to an audience. Like, and I think that's something that you have to keep in mind. Like, you don't want to talk down to kids because they can kind of see through it. You know what I'm saying? So writing Monty was very natural. I was a stay-at-home. I mean, I still am a stay-at-home dad. I'm a stay-at-home parent. We went to the museum. My daughter was amped on dinosaurs, so she told me to make up a story about a dinosaur. So I did. And she was the sidekick of the dinosaur, and we just kind of rocked it out from there. It was a lot of fun because I grew up, and I still do. Like, I'll sit around and watch cartoons with my kid. Like, I want to watch cartoons that they have grown out of. Like, I want to watch Octonauts, and neither one of my kids want to watch Octonauts anymore, and that bums me out. I can sit down and watch Looney Tunes for 45 minutes and just be as happy as I've ever been. And if you watch a lot of those shows, the good ones don't talk down to your audience. I think when people say they don't like children's programming, it's they don't like ones that are, I guess, insulting to the adults watching, because you have to get the adult. The adult has to be involved, because if not, then there's a good chance they're not going to let their kid partake in said activity. So I think the good all ages material is very good at incorporating I guess, an entire audience, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I can sit down and read a kid's comic. Like, I'll read like Tiny Titans by Baltazar and Franco, which I love.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, I'll read that stuff, and like Sophie and I are laughing at different jokes.
Yeah.
She's laughing at one thing, I'm laughing at another thing, because it's written for everyone. Granted, it's geared more towards children, but it's written kind of for everyone. And I think that kind of just goes into the mantra that comics are for everyone. Like, if someone has an interest in comics, and my daughter had an interest in comics, there wasn't really a lot for her at the time. I was like, screw it, dude, I'm just gonna make my own book, and like, I just kind of hammered it out, and it was easy. It was kind of like going back to that Looney Tunes kind of fun place of, a dinosaur dressed up like Santa Claus, or two kids in a giant overcoat looking like, there are tropes that always work, for certain things that are always going to be fun. So just, I found it pretty easy. I find it harder to write more serious things because I'm not a serious person, if that makes sense. Like, writing gags for a kid's book is fun. Writing gags for, stone 20-year-olds reading a book about a shark dude killing people, it's still gags, but trying to write something more serious is a little more difficult for me, if that makes sense. So that's my happy place. Like writing, like when people say, what comic would you like to write? Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't have a big Marvel pitch because some of them are more serious. I would love to write a Charlie Brown book. You know what I'm saying? Because like, it's something that I kind of understand and relate to. Like, Charlie Brown is just like a neurotic adult, but he's little and bald. Like, I can attest to that. I understand that. I don't know, man.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, Bob, I've taken up plenty of your time. I appreciate you being on. I'd like to end asking you, what are some things you're currently reading and listening to right now and really digging, and also what you have coming up. This episode's going to come out towards the end of February. So if there's anything you want to promote, pimp out, let people know to keep their eyes out for.
Chase the Moon will be out in May. We'll have that thing in May. We're working on that now. It's coming along very swimmingly. We have an order code actually for Metal Shark Bro. The first issue will be in stores in April. It's February 19, 1949. So if you want to order Metal Shark Bro, you want to get it from your comic shop, that's how you do it. I'm just working, man. Like, I'm just working a lot. We're just trying to get stuff done. I'm, as an independent comic creator, this, Don, like, you're not just a writer. I'm a writer, and I'm an editor, and I'm a talent coordinator, and I'm a HR representative, and I'm doing customer service things. So like,
you're assembling files, and you're doing all the.
I'm promoting the book. So it all never stops. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing it. I think you have to enjoy doing it, because then you just won't. If that, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't enjoy doing 100 things at one time, then indie comics ain't your game. You know what I'm saying?
As I'm prone to tell my wife, it seems like I'm not happy unless I'm unhappy with how much I have to do.
Yeah. You know?
So I'm 100% on board with you there.
For what I'm reading right now, I've been reading a lot of prose lately. I'm trying to get through the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm into the second book, which is cool. I'm always reading like Conan novels and shit like that because it's fun to read. Like, I love Conan. I love Robert E. Howard. He's just racist enough. Like, I can't read I can't read Lovecraft. Lovecraft is entirely too racist for me. Like, I can't get down with that. Robert E. Howard is just my level of racism that I'll take in my literary works. Burroughs kind of toes that line sometimes as well. But like, so I'm always I like reading like classic pulp novels like that. Again, sometimes it's a little too, you know, so I've actually, you know, like, I won't read Lovecraft because it's so terribly racist. But yeah, so I'm just trying to read a lot of prose, comics wise. I'm always kind of dabbling in stuff, like in and out. I'm trying to get into the new X-Men stuff because I love those creators. A lot of the new Superman stuff is cool. I think Bendis is doing some really great work. Indie books. What's the name of that book that I got from my shop? Cy Sperling is doing it. I can't remember, but it's really good. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to read and stay afloat. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot.
Yeah, when you're making them, it's harder to keep on top of what's coming out. So you're really just trying to tread water and stay, you know, on top of all the stuff that's coming out. Because not only while you start to make comics, you make friends in comics, and then you read their comics, and you want to make sure you read their comics, because otherwise, you know, you feel bad. And also, you know, more often than not, they're really good. But then you also want to stay on top of the mainstream stuff. And then sometimes your friends become mainstream creators, and it's like, oh, I have to buy X-Men now, or I have to, you know, go buy Batman now because this guy I know is working on it, and I really want to see what he does with it. So yeah, it's never a chore, but it's always just like a lot. So
I still think one of the best things that I've read recently is Four Kids Walk Into a Bank. Like, the work on that book is just so phenomenal. I read the first issue and I went back and read it again because I was like, damn, dude, like, how does this happen? Like, how does this work on so many levels? Like, how do you have, you know, a 36 panel page of just faces, and why is that interesting to me? And like, why does this work? But it just does. Like, it just crushes ass. Like, those two got Tyler Boss and Rosenberg and those cats, and even We Can Never Go Home with Josh Hood. That book is just, dude, that guy's just beating it up. Like, it's crazy, man. Like, I read stuff sometimes and I'm like, damn, dude, like, I gotta step up my shit, you know?
Well, speaking as an artist who frequents the internet every day, you see something new, and it's just like, I guess I gotta learn how to do that now. Cause
why is that be so great? Like, what, you know, like, I feel that way about Kyle Starks. Like, I love his work. Like, that Mars Attacks books that he's doing looks dope. I can't find it. It's hard. It's a tough find, but it looks amazing. I love Chris's artwork. But I just look at his stuff and I'm like, damn, dude, how do you just keep doing this? Like, how do you just keep pumping out this awesome shit, you know? So,
they do what you're doing right now.
They work,
and they do it, and they get it done. And I have no doubts that, you know, the future for you and Kevin and your projects is just going to be, people are going to be talking about those books the way they're talking about people's books now. I firmly believe that.
Oh shucks, Don, I'm blushing, Donnie. You're a smooth talker.
So yeah, I just I firmly believe that, and so, you know, congrats again on the successful Kickstarters. I can't wait to read them.
It's not a success until the books go out. Right now, it's still a work in progress. You know.
Well, you know, I'm eagerly waiting my chance to read a full-on Metal Shark Bro comic.
Yeah, it's real good. I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
All right, Bob. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.